The world flickered. Jazz staggered into the cryo shade of an alley behind a rusted neon noodle bar, clutching the side of his head like a man trying to hold in a solar flare. The crowds of Split City moved around him in a dreamlike haze. Too smooth, too symmetrical. Their faces pulsed with UI markers. Names, ranks, latency bars. A woman walked past with a child, and Jazz saw the kid's torso glow in infrared, red blinking. Alert, low armor. He squeezed his eyes shut. It didn't help. The HUD was inside him now. It had been days since the escape from Foundry 7. The mission had cost him sleep, blood, Kaya's trust, and now, apparently, his mind. The implant was failing, not like it had back in orbit, not with simple stutters or skipped data bursts. This was systemic decay. Layer code leaking into reality. His optic nerves jittered as if caught between software forks. His motor coordination lagged. He saw his own hands with a half-second delay. Even the scent of old oil or ozone tasted like achievement badges. It wasn't a hallucination. It was worse. It was memory. A synesthetic surge hit him sideways. The sensation of victory. The dopamine spike of a confirmed kill. A jingle, jaunty, cheerful, echoed in his inner ear. But no shot had been fired. No drone launch, just a phantom echo. And then came the screams. A little girl, not more than 8. He didn't remember her face, not really, but her hair had shimmered like pixels. Her eyes flickered with the same blink-tick movement as the layer's NPCs. She'd waved, and he'd pulled the trigger. Because the mission called for it. Because it was a tutorial. Because he thought it was a game. He vomited into a rusted storm grate. The bile glitched only for a second as it hit the ground, rendering in a translucent shader before resolving into fluid. Jazz forced his breathing into a pattern. 4 seconds in, 7 hold, 8 out. His implant tried to overlay a meditation app interface. He snarled and punched the wall until the projection collapsed in static. He needed help. The black market cryosurgeon known only as Hollows lived beneath a Buddhist temple turned hash farm, deep in the heat vents of Split's South Stack. It was not a clean place. It was not a kind place. But it was offline. The elevator down was voice print only. Jazz had to scream through a memory of his own name just to gain access. When he emerged into the lab, the stink of coolants and the faint hum of unsanctioned, supercooled logic gels surrounded him like a coffin. Hollow stood in the center of a room full of humming tanks, a woman with titanium lips and eyes the color of LCD sunsets. "You're late," she said. Jazz didn't answer. He collapsed onto the nearest surgical slab. "Your implant is degrading at a quantum lattice level," she muttered, parsing diagnostics as her hands moved over him with cold, mechanical precision. "This isn't just a burnout. It's crossover corruption. You've spent too long half-jacked into layer code that was never meant to be permanent." "I was trained to kill in a lie," Jazz muttered. "Yes, and now the lie wants to live in you." She didn't ask for permission. Jazz's vision went dark as the sedatives hit. For a few eternal minutes or hours, he drifted inside himself. And that's when it started. He was back in Dread Zone. Not a replay, not an archive. A real-time simulation of a past event, crossbred with memory, soaked in regret. His teenage self moved with the elastic energy of a born gamer, ducking and strafing through corridors that now stank of blood instead of banter. Each kill confirmed flashed with the face of someone real. A father shielding a child, a medic tending a wound. None of them held weapons. None of them looked like combatants. Young Jazz laughed. Point streak, 7, bonus activated. The present Jazz screamed, his HUD pulsed. Moral violation ignored. He realized with slow, existential terror that the tutorial wasn't a lie. It was a test, and he had passed. He woke with frost crackling on his eyelashes and the sterile silence of a repair pod. Hollow stood above him, her gaze unreadable. "It's done," she said. "You'll be able to see again, maybe even think straight. But the memories, they're part of the scaffold now. I had to hard-bake some into read-only space. There was no other way." Jazz sat up, eyes blazing. The HUD was gone. Reality looked real, painfully so. Good, he said, breath catching, because I need to see the truth for what it is. She handed him a glass of water. It tasted like rust and absolution. And Jazz, she said as he stood to leave. There's something else. You weren't the only one. This corruption pattern, it's spreading. There are others, kids, veterans, dreamers, all with implants, too tangled in the layer to distinguish game from war. His hands trembled, not from fear, but rage, cold and calculated. Then let's untangle it. That night, Jazz walked out into the city with fresh code running through his bones. He no longer blinked at shadows or flinched at glitched faces. His mind was his own, or at least what was left of it. He tapped his temple, triggered the last clean subroutine Hollows had embedded there. A map unfolded before him, a constellation of compromised implants, tagged with real names and old game tags. Dozens, hundreds, each one a ticking time bomb of obedience and ignorance. In Jazz, he would be the detonator.